They did receive their third quarter. The third quarter was actually 2 times bigger than what the second quarter was that they received. So we're seeing some movement in the right direction for them in that area. Intergovernmental revenues, most of what is in here is local government monies that they received from the county auditor's office. To date, what was actually estimated for the recovery plan, they've already received over that, and so that one's looking good, and they get that every month, so we'll continue to see this one increase and be over 100%. Couple of other ones that I'll hit would be the fines and forfeiture. No, sorry, I gotta read my writing. Fines, licenses, and permits. This one was kind of low last time. This has mostly the building permits in here, and it makes up over 97% of what's been collected to date. There's been a lot more movement in here. If you remember right, last year this was way below estimates, and that was due to the pandemic, so they have seen this come back and come close to what was estimated for the recovery plan, which is good to see. Another one that I'll point out is the other line. It was so high this year in estimate because we already knew when the recovery plan was done that they were getting $960,000 in BWC rebate. They also had some auctions on old or dilapidated equipment and other things, and they have actually received over $37,000 worth of monies from those auctions. So those were the big highlights over the general fund. Is there any questions or anything I did not cover?
Is that other typically a BWC rebate like we looked at last year or the year before?
Yes. We don't usually allow them to estimate it, but they already had it when we...
Right. Does it make any sense to change that other to BWC rebate / other?
No, because in their audit report, it would be under other miscellaneous revenues.
But wouldn't that guarantee that BWC will give us rebates in the future if we put it in there? Are you sure?
I just thought I might clarify the line item as being, when you say other, you don't know what it is, but if you say...
Right, but even in their audit report, it'll be a miscellaneous revenue, so that we're trying to...
match that?
Match that to some degree, yes.
Okay, so these would match exactly in the audit report?
Except for the hotel tax. And we pulled it out because we were asked to in one of our... so that one has been pulled out, but the rest of them, these are the similar items you would see in their audit report.
What happened with the investment income?
That money has to be moved over to Star Ohio, and you have to be cognizant of your bills that you have to pay, and it takes 2 to 3 days to get that money moved back over, so it's a timing issue, so that's part of it, even though we have balances. Any other questions over the general fund? Okay, the next two funds are the street and state highway. As you can see, they are both over 75% in collections and should meet their benchmarks. They get their intergovernmental revenue, which is gas tax and MVL monies monthly. So, any questions over those? Okay. The third document that I have is C. It's 7 pages. It's over expenditures. This is going to show you the recovery plan expenditures versus what's actually been expended during the year up through September. Again, we want to see less than 75% spent at this time. If it's over that, I'm definitely going to talk about those. I'll point out a few others along the way. I know I've been asked questions about why things are way lower. So I've talked about a few of them, but I'll hit a few that I think we should talk about. Page 1, Mayor's Department. There was $50,000 that was estimated here for HR services. That has not occurred, but they're looking to do some things in-house to do instead of contractually. So we will see some expenditures in a different form than we had expected, but overall it should be spent. The law director, which is at the bottom, contractual services right now are low in estimate. There was a large amount of money put in there for negotiations with all the unions. That's really getting into the thick of things right now, and we should see more expenditures come in from those services from the outside legal. Page 2, two departments I'd like to just talk about together would be the Treasury Department and earnings tax. Mainly the reason that they're lower is because both, the first one has had a position open that's never been filled the entire year. And then in the earnings tax, they did lose an employee by the 1st of April, and then that one has not been able to be filled at this time yet. Page 3 of 7, transportation. This one is fuel for the city. It was on target and it's gone over a little bit. And a lot of that I think is because of the rate increases up and down. We're going to be watching that one as we go through the rest of the year. We can't predict the prices as easily as we'd like to. But another one on here would be the auxiliary department. It's a small one, but their staffing levels have not been at full capacity. They've had some turnover in this department, so that is affected and why they are much lower than projected at this time. Page 4 of 7, the Superintendent of Public Works. It is exceeds and pretty high right now, but in talks with the auditor's office, one of the employees in there is supposed to be split between this and water, and that has not occurred, and that will be corrected here in the near future, and this should come back in line after that money is moved, or the expenditures moved to the water department. Page 5 of 7, dispatch. Again, dispatch was disbanded, I guess is the right word, by April 1st. Most of the expenditures have been taken care of. There were some health insurance that's been paid out of here that needs moved, and the auditor's office will be doing that as well. The health administration, there was somebody who had separation pay that was not estimated at the time. So that was extra expenditures that we weren't planning on, so we'll be watching that one as we go into the last quarter of the year. Page 6 of 7. Recreation is lower than expected. I don't think they've been fully staffed when they were planning on being staffed, and then I know that there were some capital plans in that the mayor can talk about later. The retiree benefit program, that's been fully paid. It's a one-time shot now after they changed to the new agreement 2 years ago, so there will be no more expenditures from that. And then the debt service at the bottom of that page, there's one interest payment left, and this will definitely be within budget after that payment, but the big principal has already been paid. Any questions over the expenditures in the general fund?
A question about a couple, just lower percentages, community center and community development, page 4.
I think that the mayor is to talk about those, and I think a lot of that has to do with some of the capital plans. The community development, though, I believe was a personnel, and getting personnel in there in a timely manner was not when it was first projected in the recovery plan.
That's correct.
And then last one was Norcom.
Norcom is going to have some health insurance moved into there because some of that's being paid out of dispatch right now. Other than that, I'd have to let the city talk about it.
We had remaining funds in that for dispatch that we needed to run down. Ultimately, you're exactly right. There's health insurance that'll be corrected.
Just reclassifications.
Yeah.
Any other one?
Those reclasses happen throughout the year, or they happen towards kind of the end of the year, or?
As soon as they're found and noted, usually they take care of them. So I expect that to be done this month. So. If not, you'll hear from me. All right, the last page, 7 to 7, has the last two funds, street and state highway. Most of the items in here is capital, a little bit of contractual services, and it's all been road work now that was planned in the recovery plan, and plus the capital improvement plan of the recovery plan. As you can see, the street and state highway are below right now, but the street does have over $700,000 worth of encumbrances in play right now. They have done a lot of work through this fund. They've done some catch basin replacement, Section Avenue, bridge replacement, work on Cathedral and Shenmore, Indian Mountain improvements, repaired a Norwood sign. They've done emergency traffic light repair, spot milling, replacement street signs, storm sewer pipe, Mount Crest curb and paving, and solar panel radar signs. So there's been a lot of work in here, and then there's a lot of work that's in place. When I say there's encumbrances, there's purchase orders out there open to, and the work is being performed, and I expect some more expenditures in the last quarter of this year. And then the mayor can talk about, and he provided that capital in an email to all of us that kind of runs down what the study has done and plans to do as kind of an update as well. So.
When did you send that document? I don't know if I saw that one. Recently?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
you
must
may
have-
not have.
I must have missed that.
Yeah, you may not have.
You need to get on your email every half hour.
Really?
Yeah,
It was-
that's my other email, so I glance at it once a day, so it's kind of like,
It was actually
I miss
a spreadsheet of what was the capital plan that was in the recovery plan. But they added to it and put like purchase order numbers and spend out of those purchase orders to
Oh, okay.
get more of a, I mean, they've done an incredible amount of work on
yeah,
their
well, I
capital
see it.
plan.
I mean, I see it going around.
Yeah.
Looks
Very
good.
There's still an incredible
Right.
amount to
Yeah, we're scratching this
Always.
do. We're
surface of the
scratching the
mountains
surface,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, always.
So I guess you're gonna speak to this later, and I don't have that in front of me, but just for the sake of discussion, we got 2.2 allocated. We spent 760, we got another 7 something kind of already in the pipeline, and that, according to my math, that's another $700,000 to be spent by the end of the year, or is that, do we think we're gonna hit that number, or?
No, we're not gonna hit the number. I mean, but we do have a lot going on right now that's finishing up. Remember, we get a late start because of the way it all works. I mean, so we're finishing up late, and we are hurrying and pushing hard to get things completed and to get invoices in and get everything squared away and people paid in the right time frame, because that's critical to what we're trying to do. So, take off the first 4 months of the year and then give us the other months, and we're working our best to.
Yeah,
to
so
get where we need to be.
I guess I'm not concerned about not spending it all, obviously. I'm just wondering how that impacts future budget years for things like that, and if that rolls into next year, if that kind of dissolves because we didn't spend it, or, and those numbers that we had we had put forth last year or the last budget would get carried forward, or they would get increased for these projects that got.
Any of his encumbrances will roll over to the following year. So projects that are in place right now that, when you do the big project, you have to go through a very strict review process to make sure that the work has been done before you pay for it. So that usually takes several weeks, not only from the contractors then coming in and making sure that here they agree that yes, that work has been done, we can see that.
Yeah.
So those purchase orders will still be out there, and it will reduce their available balance for new appropriations, but anything that is not encumbered by the end of the year and there's still a balance come over that's available, they can still appropriate that coming into 2022. So in the recovery plan, we kind of account for that as well for these two funds, and you can see that plus the capital improvement plan is a 5-year plan that goes along with the recovery plan to show what their plans are, but can change, and what their projects, and keep rolling with the balances and what they project those costs to be on the constructions.
So I guess simply said, that will roll forward.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll see in the next recovery plan, we'll see where some of the capital investment and projects that were planned for this year didn't happen
Sure.
because of
Whatever.
the circumstances.
Yeah.
So they'll probably roll that to the next year because that plan is still to do that. And the priority, well, and I shouldn't speak to, priorities may change. So in the meantime, we may find that we've got a real issue, and instead of doing this as planned, because we didn't get to it, we've got to do X instead of Y.
Yeah.
But, yes.
So in the next budget, it'll all kind of be reshuffled and reallocated
Based on
and however
capital
it ends
need
up,
at
it
the
ends up.
time. Sure,
Yeah, okay.
sure.
Got it.
Same
We're
thing we
working on
did for 2020. I
Yeah.
mean, 2020, they didn't get to do as many projects they wanted because
Sure.
COVID and then just not being able to get people in here and then getting the project started.
Yeah.
So it's just the same process.
Yeah, just deferred.
Yes,
Got it.
But not forgotten.
yeah.
No,
As
because
far-
obviously these are
well-
important projects and the money's been allocated, and if these projects are high priority, which I think they are, then you don't want to let those just kind of fade away and move on to next year's priorities. So,
Right,
great, thank you.
absolutely.
That's all I have. We'll do the reconciliation and the next, like the old business.
Okay, all right. Any more questions on the financials? Okay. Let's go in order. What the heck? I was gonna take the easy one first, but that's okay. I printed one of two of the PWC loans. The one that you have in front of you is for Regent Avenue. And this actually is it not a grant and a loan?
It is.
It's about
Okay, where the other one was a straight loan. Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC, any of the loans are usually, if not all the time, 0% loans, which is great. This is from the State Capital Improvement Plan, the SKIP allocations. If I am not mistaken, in looking at what was planned for Regent Avenue in the plan, in the recovery plan, the capital, the city was just going to repave. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but I believe the availability of these dollars allowed the city to do far more than just repaving, because you can only repave a problem for so long until you
Sure.
really got to do that investment. And this is more like curbs and everything else involved in this.
And I'm sorry, what area is this?
Regent Avenue is.
Help me out.
South Norwood. So
Okay,
it's
so like,
over behind
Back
Surrey,
there.
well, it's further north than Surrey Square, but over in that area, behind, like, if you think of Nagley Funeral Home or AutoZone, back in that area.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
I've only lived here like 15 plus
Yeah.
years.
yeah.
Well, I saw a lot of Norwood just getting here, but I didn't see Regent.
So we have Clint Zimmerman, the Superintendent of Public Works is here. If you wanted, if you need more information on what the scope of this project is, Clint's here and available to provide a little bit more information on it. He's provided this information to council, and he's here if you want him to step up and talk.
So you allowed to do that now?
Well, a description of the actual work, I mean, they can talk more, but it's in your documents, it's on page 19.
Page 19, okay.
It tells you what the project consists of.
Sounds like everything but the kitchen sink.
Yeah,
So what we're looking for is a motion and approval by the commission for the city to enter into the loan.
and the promissory note section is the actual last page. It's for 668, beg your pardon. And that's what Mr. Stith will sign, but he needed the commission's approval because While, if you're looking at the cash, if they just took this from the general fund alone, there is more than sufficient cash. The fact, though, is that because the city is in fiscal emergency, the revised code requires the commission to approve any debt obligations that the city would enter into. And Anna Mary, correct me if I'm wrong,
Open.
is this going to come from the street, or are we going to do,
Considered
is it going to be one of those things where we transfer cash from, or it's gonna come strictly from
It's in-
street?
It's in his,
It's in the capital plan.
Yeah.
It's listed as coming from
As
the
coming
street
from the
fund.
street.
And they've
I know
been,
it's less, but
yeah, and they've been building up a balance in the street fund. If you guys will remember, basically the salaries of the street were moved as to a department of the general fund to accumulate cash in the street fund so that they did have these funds available when an opportunity like this came along. Now, the only thing I will say is, the number does not match what is in the capital plan, but that's because at the time the capital plan was put together, it's your best estimate until you get all the engineering studies done. You have no idea what the cost is. So I do believe the capital plan will need to be updated to encompass the true amount of both of these.
yes.
But yes, it is included as a project in there.
Okay.
In the future, recovery plans will have to show the potential, when the debt occurs, we'd have to show it as a debt line in the street fund, and it would have to be amortized over all the years that we show, at least the
Okay.
5, but it would go up further, and we'd have to have notations about that in the assumptions,
Okay.
so that you'd be aware.
Can I get just a little more detail on, I guess, the project itself, why it's high priority, why that area, what's the problem?
We did a street survey, had an engineering firm come in and do a street survey. Region was one of the higher ranking streets. And then Clint, if you want to come up and talk a little bit about the challenges with that street.
So Regent Avenue, this project, as projected, will go from Williams Avenue to the dead-end terminus down by Lexington Avenue. It's quite a stretch. It's to the point now where they would really need a full-depth reconstruction. So it's got a very high crown. We've got some drainage issues where currently we don't have any catch basins for storm sewer in the block between Regent and Wayland. There will be some installed there to divert directly to the stormwater rather than everything coming down and kind of pooling in that intersection at Williams and Regent. This will encompass not only road reconstruction, resurfacing, it's new driveways, new driveway aprons, new curbs. There's some stormwater inlets that are going to be added. As I said, this also includes a new water main with utility conflicts. It'll be a new 8-inch water main upgrade for the entire length, including new service lines from the water main to the curb boxes. It's quite a project, but for $1.6 million, right around there, $1,001,000 will be a grant. The $668,000 will be zero interest loan over 30 years, which paid 2 different times a year, which should work out to somewhere around $24,000 to $27,000 a year for the next 30 years. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I did
Yeah,
forget
thank
to mention that these are 30-year loans,
Oh, no, I did that.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 years, no interest.
which makes
It's
it
like-
extremely affordable. I
Sure.
think that the,
It's like $13.91 a month, I think.
yeah, I
I
mean,
calculated that
it's like, the hardest thing is getting on the list, I think, really.
To get the
You know,
money.
because there's so many different projects, and you've got each of the district integrating committees, and even then, they're local folks, but they get an awful lot of projects that come in, so.
Sure. Well,
So let's, let us work with Regent Avenue. I did, the agenda. Let's do Regent first, and then we also have to discuss, it's on the tip of my tongue. Slane Avenue, which is a straight loan, but a much smaller project. So I would ask for a motion to approve that the City of Norwood engage in an agreement with the Ohio Public Works Commission that then obligates them to repay a loan of $668,000 over 30 years. Do I have a motion to approve?
Yes, also moved.
Mayor moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I will call the roll. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis.
Yes.
Ms. Longenecker.
Yes.
Ms. Hanrahan, yes. Okay. The debt obligation with OPWC is approved. The next one is actually, which you don't have in front of you, is for Slane Avenue. Mayor, I don't know if you wanted to discuss this or if you wanted to.
Sure. Well, first, since April brought it up, within this, there is a description for Slane Avenue, which is close to Floral and Ellesmere, runs across Slane. It runs off Montgomery Road. It'll be mill and overlay, surface and intermediate, full depth pavement repairs, curb removed and replaced, drive aprons, curb ramps, utility adjustments, catch basins. It's approximately 1,600 linear feet long and 36 feet wide, and it reduces them width close to the Floral Avenue terminus. So that's the summary description that's in here. Again, this is for $466,000 loan, 0% interest for 30 years through the OPWC skip funding, as she had mentioned on the same one. And this is another one of the streets that was high on the list for the engineering, from the engineering study. And we're trying to use that engineering study to put together what
Are
we're
you
trying to
going, kind of hitting right down the list of the?
Well, yes and
Close to
no.
it.
There's higher priorities, of course, for travel and flow. There are some streets that are worse than others that are going, it's going to take a little bit longer for us to get there. But we have 60 miles of streets, and we're going to continue to work on it. We're going to continue, within this meeting, I also want to talk about some other certification of funds letters and things that we potentially want to do. So I have sort of a summary on what we're trying to do with streets that I'll give in the mayor's report. But for this is not I wouldn't say this is the same work as the Regent Avenue project, because it's much larger in scope. There are a lot more challenges with the Regent Avenue project than this one. This is more of what I would consider to be a standard rehabilitation of the street.
So again, not a repaving, more a rehabilitation.
Sure.
So we're talking curbs. and-
A little less infrastructure underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I miss it? What was the total for the loan?
466,000.
30 years, they're all just $1,000 a month.
Again, repaving for this was in the capital improvement recovery plan to only repave of $150,000 for this year. So this is higher than expected, but the scope is much larger, and it was under the street fund. So again, that would have to have an FRP update going forward and capital as well.
And that would be
Especially
spread out, the cost of the project would be spread out as the loan payments, right?
Yep.
Well, you'd have the payment and you'd have the debt. You get two things.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like we're
Proceeds.
hitting like we spent $460,000 this year on
Correct.
stuff, because we really didn't.
Yeah,
We did, but we didn't.
I don't know if they're ready to hit the ground running. He would have to answer that. I don't know how much work they can get done in the next quarter.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about that, I'm just thinking from a state budget, what the law or what the rules are, so.
Okay, I would look for a motion to approve the.
Do we have a copy of this note?
We do not in front of us, but it was sent out yesterday.
Oh, it was.
It is very similar to this one, except
So
there's no
it's
grant.
pretty much exactly the same as that one.
There's no grant.
Different purpose, different place.
I'm not,
Okay.
I'm
I didn't know
not,
if there was a requirement for,
They all read the same, all 20 pages
Whatever.
until you get to the last three.
Sure.
and it's changed.
Yeah.
I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you because we basically are on call 24/7. And invariably, I look at my emails and I get nothing. And then the next day, I receive 2 or 3. It's like, it just doesn't, it never fails.
Can't win.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just can't.
Yeah. No, that's on me.
Okay, then I would look for a motion to approve the City of Norwood taking on a debt obligation for OPWC of $466,000 over 3 years at 0% interest. Did I say 30? I meant 30.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay.
I'm sorry, 30. For the rehabilitation of Slane Avenue. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Longenecker approves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Schwartz seconds. I will call the roll. Ms. Longenecker.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Sharon. Ms. Hanrahan, yes. Motion is approved.
Quick question. We've just done 2 of these, and is it fair to say we can tap into this kind of annually? Or is this, the window's open and we're going through it? As far as these 30-year, 0% debt
I believe
opportunities.
OPWC is annual funding rounds.
Yeah.
So we might be
The
able to knock a
opportunity's
couple of
there.
these out a year, doing this
It's-
kind of thing
The
with,
potential is there,
Potential.
yes.
They've done
grant
these in
and
the
cheap.
past, but they've gotten more grant monies in the past, and so, but they have done some debt in the past as well. So it's still being used with the city. The opportunity to do 2 big ones has come up this year. So
is that
it all
because of
depends
the
on
federal
funding.
stuff, or is that just, it's always there? We just
There's
need to
always
go
money
get it.
at OPWC, it's just which ones they approve through their funding. And then there's other areas, like they've also in the past gotten CDBG monies, which comes through the county as well, that can be done on some road projects. So there's other areas too, but it just depends upon you submit your application and then it's out of your hands whether you're approved or not.
But
But
I
they
guess I
have
was just
received
asking if
money.
this is an unusual time because of the pandemic and everything,
Oh,
that
I
there's
see.
extra money available that we're tapping into that won't be there necessarily in 2 or 3 years. Or it's kind of, it's
No.
always there
It's
and we
always
always
there.
gotta
It's
go
always
get
been
it.
there.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
There is some infrastructure money under the new ARPA stuff, but it is very strict on what you can do there, and you have to apply for that. I do know there's that.
It's like
But
water
I
and
haven't
sewer
seen,
kind of.
yeah, water sewer. I haven't seen, we haven't dealt with that yet, so that funding would be very limited and a one-time deal, so.
Got it, thank you.
Good questions. Another item I have under new business is just a discussion. It's not for an approval. But there was an amendment to the letter of engagement. And the letter of engagement is a professional courtesy and requirement, I should say, as well, between the Auditor of State's office and the city. It basically says, this is what we will do for you, and this is what we will charge you. The letters are the maximum, and the Auditor of State always, they don't want to set it too low, but please understand that their object is not to run the meter on the city, because they're in a whole bunch of other different localities. So they are just trying to give a reasonable estimate at the time of what they think their engagement with the city will cost. And the new one, I believe, is an increase of $25,000. So the original was for $50,000, and with the additional, it's in a not-to-exceed amount of $25,000. So you'll note that it is $75,000, the old amount of $50,000, plus the new not-to-exceed amount of $25,000.
Yeah, it looks like this is specifically related to the bank reconciliation.
That's correct.
Any action required?
No, no. I like to bring these to the commission just so that they have an understanding of, this is another obligation of the commission, or I'm sorry, of the city, not the commission. And I just want them to understand, us to know about it. Okay, under old business,
Can we, sorry.
certainly,
Can we stay on new business for just a minute?
we can.
We received recently a request for the Chief Financial Officer's certification of local funds loan repayment letter. And these are certifications that they're requesting the auditor to sign for three, and you were just talking about grants and loans and the funding that's out there. We are getting into the OPWC, Ohio Public Works cycle, and we are applying for more grants and for more loans. We'd like to have grants. There's a grant, and then there's the GROAN, which is, you saw basically on, we'd like to have the grant, which they pay for
Sure,
everything.
yeah, right.
Then there's a GROAN, that's a
Right.
grant and a loan. That's what we're doing with
That was the
Regent.
first one, right?
Yeah, and then there's just the straight out loan. So we are applying for 50/50 grant loans on 3 other projects. And they request, within this application process, they request the auditor to certify that there's enough money if they do award it. Now, there's a lot of steps that have to be taken
Sure.
to get to it, but if they do award for these next 3 projects, that we're actually financially solvent, and we could go down that route before they even spend all the time and goes to the integration committee and they say, so this is a letter that the auditor is required to sign. And so I'll read off these 3 repayment letters. One is for Lincoln Avenue, which is a really rough street over on the side where the community center is. It runs parallel to the community center. We're making an application for $879,150 for that. That would be repavement, rehabilitation.
50/50.
It potentially would be a 50/50. For the Ralston Avenue improvements, it would be, Ralston Avenue is up on the other side of town. I'll say behind Sanker Boulevard and back in that area, Tennessee. This is for $1,073,500, the long, big street. And then the other one that they are requesting us to provide this letter for is for South Jefferson Avenue, which is $904,000. So these are all, I would call them, preliminary start of request for the funds to do that, but the auditor would like to hear the commission's, thoughts on that, and then have approval to even just move forward with requesting the money. April, am I correct in that summary, or is there something more to that?
Well, this is the first I've heard of these,
Mm-hmm.
so
These just came in.
Okay, well, I would, as
They can-
financial supervisor, I'm gonna tell you, we would like time to see all the documentation that accompanied those letters.
Okay.
I mean, those are some large amounts. I'm not saying that, you can't, but I think for us to do our due diligence, we need to see the full documentation, because those are not letters that I was provided to accompany these 2 type of things.
Okay,
So
these
are
came
those
in very
different
recently.
than these type of?
They are different. These are just for putting in the application. This is required before we put in, even before we put in the application, before it goes to the integration committee. So I will email these to you. These came in to me here recently too. But we only meet once a month, and sometimes we don't even meet once a month, or we're not meeting once a month. So I wanted to get this, when it came across mine, I thought, well, this might be a good time to discuss it and make sure.
Those should come to us beforehand, though, as financial supervisors, so that we can vet it out and answer the questions that the commission would have, and make sure that financially that's a sound opportunity, and to also look at the recovery plan and the capital improvement plan, which we were able to do on a short basis on the other 2, and they were within here in a different type of format. But my next question would be, are they in the recovery plan in future years, and at what cost? And even though it's just an application, that's just part of our job duties that we have to perform under the emergency. So we
Okay.
can't speak to it.
Okay, so I will provide you too with this email that came in to me on these. But this also, I'd like for this to spark the conversation about loans and how much, what we would take and what the commission looks at and says, so I look at this and I say, okay, we got a 0% interest loan, yay, for 30 years, great, but we are paying that money back. And at some point, we want to aggressively try to replace and repair streets that we haven't had the funds for in years. So we want to move forward aggressively on that. But at what point do we say, this is a loan that came through, but we really don't want to do a loan. We've got money in the general fund. Why don't we just pay for that and move forward? So I'm trying to get the feel for what the financial professionals feel is the right route for the city of Norwood in the future.
If you would want to do that would be, we'd have to look at, and you would have to provide us with an updated portion of the FRP, not to come here yet, but to us to vet out the numbers, to then say you are able to continue to pay for the things that you are required to pay for with personnel and other things, plus can you afford to pay for that directly out of the general fund based upon not only what we are seeing in the FRP and what you've already projected, but also with that capital plan, and are you moving things around? It's a living, breathing document, and it can be changed. So you would have to provide to us what you're looking at, what you want to spend, and then we'd have to vet the numbers out with updates of what's happened through the year, what you're going to change in future years. We have unions that you're still negotiating with now, which will definitely affect that recovery plan based upon what is agreed between the parties. So we'd have to look at that and then see if that comes in, will that really reduce that balance too much that you couldn't do that and it's not a financially sound opportunity to go ahead and just pay for it or not. But that would be what we would have to see and from you guys. So it would really have to start from you. We'd have to see you present the numbers to us and update things, and then we would do some due diligence in looking at the updates and can you do that. I'm not saying it's not a possibility. I do foresee that you would have to look at your prioritized lists under the capital portion, because that would definitely change what you could probably do there. Your numbers are looking good, but we never want to get to the point that our balancers are so low that if something catastrophic like when GM left happened and your source of revenue declines drastically, that you still can't go forward with what you're required to pay for. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And what I'm looking for is a path for a sustainable road program for the city, even when this group is not meeting, that we have an administration that says this is a path. And that's something that council members have brought up too. And they've said, what are we doing on streets and how are we setting this up for success long-term?
Right.
Because it's going to take a long time to get all these streets. So I'm just looking for a path, and I want to use, I'll call it the brain trust, but I want to use the brain trust to make sure that in the future, so next year or 2 years, we potentially don't have some of the resources that we have, but we've got a plan in place that's sustainable. So that's really what sparks that question. Council wants us to put something together that lasts, and I want to also. I think all of us would like to have a street program that works.
Street survey has been done too, you will know whether it's really a repave that you need to do or if it's really down to the gravel or whatever the case may be, depending upon what they're saying. But that will definitely affect this capital plan, because like the two today are definitely way higher than projected just because of the scope has changed, which makes total sense. But when you change scope on 60 miles of Norwood roads, as you had said, that definitely increases it. And like I will tell you, because I've been here since the start of this, the street, the 2002 fund and 2003 fund, were not in great shape in the beginning. And then there's a lot of stuff that was cut, and there are balances in there now. And most of the time grant work was done and not loans. So there is money that comes in every year, but it is not to the ginormous amount that it can handle a huge project every year and have any reserves to do another one the following year. So you're right, the general fund may have to be involved, but again, that would be, you would need to look at realistic numbers and let us know what we're really looking at. And I think that street survey will definitely help you in doing better approximates now that you have that, to know what scope of work you really need to do to make those better decisions. So that's what I would suggest. I do foresee this really getting revamped at big time, plus the financial recovery plan. But this would probably have to be first, because then you can show, okay, well, this is the priority, this is really what needs to be done on these streets, this is really the scope of the work, and the potential cost, which repave versus this is way, further apart. So that would be what we would be looking for. Again, and looking at your revenue sources, yes, the OPDWC is out there in the world. It's great to go get that. I won't count that until you get it approved. Because we don't want to put that in there and it's not done. That's just the recovery plan world. So if this were approved, we're definitely needing to put this in the street fund and the street fund next year. The money's coming in from the proceeds, then the construction going out, and then showing the debt payments when they're supposed to start. So,
Okay.
does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Has the finance committee discussed that topic?
They do. The Finance Committee discusses those topics, and the Finance Committee has brought things up. We have Streets and Infrastructure Committee also. It's not a real active committee. But the challenge here, and I think it was said at a previous meeting, is some of the sustainability parts of it. So we're looking at a change of council. So now 2 years later, after we've got this council trained up and doing well, I shouldn't say trained up, they're all like, he's not, I don't train council, but clearly they have a good understanding of what's going on. Some of them have to move on, their priorities and their life changes. And so we've got a transition. We'll have a different finance committee. And it's going to be interesting how we can get things done and get them, up to speed quickly. It'd be nice if we already had in place a street plan that you can say, here's the street plan. This is what, is sort of laid out. As long as we stay on this path, that's what we need to work on, so.
From the viewpoint of the commission, our role is to approve debt obligations. So we would not, this is not an obligation as it exists currently. It is an application for hopefully a grant, which could be a grant and a loan, or a loan. Because it's just an application and not, we are incurring debt, we're going to sign the promissory note, we would leave it to the financial supervisors to work with the city, so to best determine the feasibility, maybe an estimate of, given what those costs are, if this was a loan, 30 years, how much would it cost? And even a further guesstimate, when would we even start incurring these costs? So it's not an easy thing to do.
And that's the
There's so
process
many
we went through
different-
for these two that we approved today, was before they signed that application, these guys reviewed everything in detail and then said, go ahead with it?
It was, the timing could have been a little better, I think. But again, we're dealing with something that they're not sure they're gonna get approved. Whether or not these ladies knew that the city was even applying to OPWC and the scope had changed, I can't answer that. So that, I think that means we perhaps should look at a little better communications in a more timely manner. That would be of assistance. I would also say that while I definitely understand the need, and I would never dismiss that, I also have to think towards, we also have a bank reconciliation problem that still exists. So we're going a step higher, quite a step higher in capital investments when our checkbook isn't even balanced. And I know that, I fully understand that we can't stop movement just because the bank reconciliation. But I think we have to recognize the importance of that. I'm not saying the city's dismissing that, but we may need to pull back a little bit on our expenditure plans, given the reality that exists currently.
the reality of an unreconciled bank account.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We've got a collective bargaining agreement that is yet to be settled. There's, welcome to city life. It's
It's always
always,
something, yeah. No, I guess I was just pointing to the process we go through of their approval of a project that turns into a grant or a loan or a loan that ultimately turns into interest-free money for us. If that process, when they were saying they didn't see that and they approved it, did they see it before they approved it last time or do they not? I'm more curious than anything, or if it's, no, the last two, they went too far down the road without you guys being involved, and you want to change it this way and be involved more on the front end of the application than
Absolutely.
the middle or the back end. Is that
Absolutely.
the reality I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not pointing fingers or anything, I'm
No.
just,
No, we
again,
need these
trying to
documents
get clarification.
as soon as the city becomes aware.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And this, for the city, for me, this is a new process. If you talk to any other engineering company, they'd say, what are you talking about? You have to go through the financial, that's not you go to city council, you get them to approve it, and then you move it. That's not how it works with the city at this point, but that's okay. We just need to make sure we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I would hate to lose an opportunity because it's being vetted and the window closes and then the opportunity goes away versus maybe you just sign the letter and say, yeah, we can pay it. And you guys take your 6 months or your 3 months to go figure out if you want to give us the money while the guys are vetting the long-term implications of that.
and that would be fine, except that Jim Stiff is a person that has to sign that. Jim may not want to do that because
Sure.
he can't, that's his reputation on the line. And he needs to go and talk to these women to understand before he signs off on, yeah, we got the money, because we really don't know if we've got the money.
Yeah,
Norwood needs to stay in the good graces of the integrating committee also.
You're
And
right.
putting out this letter and saying, yeah, let's go. And then they do all the work and send it to you and they go, no, and we go, no, thanks anyways. Like, wait a minute, it's next
It's a
round,
mega
next
mistake.
round, you just dropped down a
yeah,
notch.
so you don't want
We
to turn
want-
them down if it
Yeah,
happens.
we want to make sure we're up
I just
front.
want to make sure that we're in the best position to get as much money as we can, as cheaply as we can, however we can, while still honoring the controls and the due diligence that needs to take place. So whatever that answer is, sounds good to me. So,
So I think at this point, we will let the wheels of progress grind on, and the commission will take a back seat and, as a city and financial supervisors, discuss a feasibility. Anything else under new business?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Old business. Progress on the son of a gun we were just talking about, reconciliation.
So this is just going to be brief, but just so the commission is aware, the Auditor of State's office, we are performing the bank reconciliations. So we're working with the treasurer and the auditor's office. We did establish a base starting point of December 2020. We are currently have the city reconciled through May of 21. We have a team here today. There are a total of 8 of us trying to get through June, July, and August receipts. But just to give you an idea of the magnitude of the work that we've done, we've looked at 7,400 lines of expenditures. We've looked at 3,200 lines of receipts and matched that up to the monthly transactions on the bank statements. So we are taking line by line the information that is in SSI, matching it up to the bank. We started this around the first part of September when we really hit bringing a full team in. And as of yesterday, we had already spent about 245 hours just on this project. I can tell you with the amount of work that we are doing and what we are looking at, the city does not have the staffing Ray talked about the treasurer's office, they're already down 2 people. Chuck has been our main contact that we're working with. He does not have the time to do what this takes. So once we are done, and I've had a chance, or Anne Marie and I've had a chance to talk to the auditor's office and treasurer's office, then we will provide information to the commission. But I'm not going to speak about things that we are seeing or finding until I'm done, and have had the courtesy to talk to those two offices.
Is SSI the old accounting system or new?
It's the, both. It was the old, but it's the new also. It's just more updated.
We were actually in here months before September trying to do it through their system, and it just was not working. We were here on several visits working with the treasurer's office, me and another staff person, and we weren't getting anywhere. So we had to change tactics and go to pulling data out of the system, and our office kind of pulling it together so that we can look at it line by line. And so it has been a very tedious process since then. But we did try to do it through the system, and we were just having too many issues and not finding enough stuff to get it to balance. So this has been a much better process, but we wanted to try through the system first.
Any other surprises in the process? No?
Just that it's a lengthy one. And I think they knew that, but I don't know until they actually started it.
Yeah. Well, anytime you get months behind, it doesn't matter how big or small you are, you're asking for trouble. I had a client that was a, $100 million company, and they had a guy from account that's there for a year doing nothing but catching up the bank recs. And so I'm sure on this scale, it's even messier. So the importance of keeping up
Fund
to
accounting
speed.
is never an easy thing. If you think in terms of a normal bank reconciliation and then you add in fund accounting,
It's fine.
it's, yeah, without the D.
Yeah, that's actually, so.
Okay. Report on accounting methods that we usually turn to Ken to discuss. I don't know if you ladies had any updates. Your own, okay. Well, we'll wait on that, and that will be an ongoing topic of discussion at the meetings. As you can tell by the balances in the funds, that is one of the many points that the auditors will look at for removal from fiscal emergency. That's not the only one. Certainly the bank reconciliation, but the report on accounting methods. I think just the fact that 99.9% of the time you're going to see some policies in there, and it's sort of, yeah, they've got some policies out there that you can kind of use as your own, but does that really fit? And it's a process of getting it going before council, getting it approved and so on. So it's a lengthy process.
Mhm.
And it's very time consuming for those people that have to work on it too, so.
Mhm.
Okay. Mayor, anything that you'd like to report? Besides that,
Where do I start?
yeah.
I'm a little scared to talk about streets, but street projects that we have sort of in the works, and this is information that I've received, sort of a summary from our engineering team, is the OPWC projects, which is Regent and Slane, which we discussed quite a bit. And then upcoming project applications. These applications are due by October 29th. But these are this is part of the letter that we were discussing earlier for Lincoln, Ralston, and South Jefferson, which Anna Mary and April will discuss with them. Then the Community Development Block Grant and other street projects. One is Cypress Way. I don't know if any of you have ever been on Cypress Way, but it is a border street, meaning that it's partially in Cincinnati, and then it weaves over a little bit and it comes into Norwood, and then it weaves back over and goes into Cincinnati. And so that street was paved a few years ago by Cincinnati on the Cincinnati portion of the street. So we're trying to get this street corrected so that it's paved properly. That's one project we're working on. Tower Park Drive, and this is all Community Development Block Grant money that we're working on. Tower Park Drive goes around the old Indian Mound, the actual Indian Mound that the area is named of. And we're looking at trying to get that milled and overlaid. That's about a $90,000 project. And then for next year, we're looking at Varleman Court, and Arklow Court, utilizing some CDBG funds, which is $150,000. The estimated cost of the project is about $340,000. And I can send out this summary to each of you in an email that sort of outlines these. I will say that all of this is a work in progress. All of these are things that we're working on. I'd like to say that it's a done deal, but it's not. We're working toward in this direction. The city's cost for the design is about $27,000. This is Varleman, Arklow, and Varleman Court. So there's a considerable amount of work sort of working on that. Montgomery Road, the state route 22 and 3, we are looking at fiscal year 2024. We are pushing them for this to be a corp line to corp line resurfacing. There's a lot to that, and you'll see some of the numbers. Total construction project cost being $1,531,000, but there's engineering costs for construction, engineering design, and then the city received a grant from SORTA for this street, and that's $765,900.
What street was that?
This is from Montgomery Road.
Oh,
So this was the SORTA grant funds, which was a new grant that came out, and we applied for that, and we were capable of grabbing
so
that.
just clarify, that was $1.5 million plus the engineering costs and stuff, minus the $700,000 we got from SORTA?
Yeah, so
Okay. Roughly.
roughly, yes.
So how long do you have to spend the grant funds?
The SORTA grant fund? I'm not, it's clearly, it's going to be able to be spent in the 2024 cycle, because that's where we have it allocated right now, or that's what we're looking at right now for Montgomery Road.
Okay, so you've received the grant or been awarded the
We've
grant?
been awarded
would
the
be-
grant.
Okay,
Yeah.
with the stipulation or the knowledge by SORTA that this will be a project in 2024?
Correct,
Okay.
So that's when we'll get the money.
correct. I don't know that we ever get the money. It goes, sort of passes through, and then
I was gonna say, is it reimbursable?
Well, yeah.
Or they're gonna pay the contractors directly?
I think they pilot, I don't, that's all of this, like I said, is a work in progress. So we'll work through those particulars as we get
Make
closer.
sure the grant gets to their office, because they'll have to make sure everything's sort of financially correct, and then they'll have to make sure allowable expenditures to the grant too.
You're pointing at Marcus for the
Yes,
auditor's office, as you said? You're not talking to me about that, okay,
Yeah,
good.
They
Let's-
should get all grant agreements so that they can set it up financially correct in the systems, even if it's not being given yet the award, then, and they need to have it on record for when they have the audit.
And Marcus, I'll copy you and Jim on this summary also. So that's Montgomery Road, then Smith Road. Smith Road is another state route. So we're looking at doing some work there. It's $1,108,000. This is all the way out in 2025 is what we're looking at there. So this, again, this is, like I said, it's a state route, so takes a little bit more effort, but it also gets some state funding. There's some different funding vehicles.
Mr.
for
Mayor, on the street study we did, I know you kind of said we're hitting the top priorities, and these are the roads that are really bad, that need infrastructure and curbs and all those types of things. Did it also take into account, I'm assuming it did, the main arteries of the city that, you're gonna pave a Montgomery Road more frequently because it gets used more frequently, more cars passing than you would a side street, and it's only get used mainly by the people that live right in that immediate area. Is that also part of the prioritization?
It encompassed all the streets in the city of Norwood. So it did differentiate between, it doesn't have 562, the Norwood lateral is not really rated on there. But it does encompass all of them, and it doesn't differentiate between a state route and the others.
But I
But
mean,
you,
as far as the volume or the usage of that street itself,
based on traffic counts, no.
because I would think that would need to be, a Smith, a Montgomery Road, the major arteries that the police, fire, people use every day, you know, and I think it just, in common sense says it makes, there's 200 cars going down this street a day and there's 20,000 going down this street every day, then I am gonna focus more frequently on the 20,000 car street a day, because it's getting the most usage and it's the most needed by the community as a major artery.
Was this mostly an engineering survey, the street survey, or?
Oh, it's totally engineering, yeah.
Okay.
It's an engineering study on the streets
So
and the
it
condition of the
basically is
streets.
a condition,
It's
not so
conditional,
much the
Yeah, I mean,
usage, so.
does that make sense though?
But
Or
it-
you
it
say
makes
like
absolute
like you
sense.
say like in Monroe, for example, which kind of connects Montgomery and then over to 75 and full disclosure, or 71, full disclosure, I live at the corner of Monroe and Floral. Versus again, a side street off of Floral that's just really bad, but like, who's using it?
Well, that is, all those concerns are brought up. That's part of the administration and council and the committees on council and council members discussing what streets are really more of a priority than others. You're right. A dead-end street that has 10 houses on it is not going to get priority over a street that has a large amount of traffic flow that's degrading, maybe, you know, so that's absolutely true. When it comes to state routes, you know, ODOT is in charge, and they control a lot more money, and it's not the county that has some of the allocations for it. Most of the stuff we deal with is through the County Integration Committee. So this is different, it's much different when it comes to a state route and so if you look at Montgomery Road, the last time it was repaved was in 2000, so it's been 20 years. And I'll say that it was done in 3 different phases, and we're trying to get it all, we want it all completed. They did it all over in Cincinnati, all over on Montgomery Road. They've done huge phases of it that are as long as Montgomery Road is in Norwood. Well, let's do it all in one phase and get the whole street looking beautiful at the same time, instead of doing this and then 2 years later doing another part of it and then 2 years later doing another part. But that's us trying to, you know, work our way with. One of the things we're trying to do with Montgomery Road right now, we know they've got a major work going on 562 on the Norwood lateral, and they're going to be shutting down. They're planning on shutting down the east lane completely, and then they'll shut down the westbound lanes completely. And we know that's going to throw a lot more traffic onto Montgomery Road. People are going to be using it more. Okay, then ODOT, shouldn't you repave Montgomery Road a year earlier than doing that work? So we're trying to work the system and get them to prioritize us a little bit more than, so we'll see. It's a work.
I think it's kind of getting bang for the buck and acknowledging that, you know, this street is not significant and these streets are significant to a lot of people and they take a lot more abuse. I know the city of Cincinnati looks at that when they allocate money in neighborhoods is how busy is that intersection you want to fix, or, you know, how busy is that intersection that's unsafe that we need to put a roundabout
Absolutely.
in, or those types of things. So I think it would be naive to not consider the car volume and maybe even do some type of study of what are the highest traffic areas. Maybe you pave Montgomery Road every 5-10 years and everything else is every 20 years because it's a matter of, well, this gets 5 times the usage, so it should get 5 times the attention.
Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. Adding on to this, municipal road funds, we've got $100,000 available for Montgomery Road street improvements. These are funds that have to be spent in 21 and 22, so we're going to have to utilize that funding. It can be used for paving, curbs, bus pads, traffic signals, so we're working with that. And then we've got applications submitted for Smith Road, which is, again, the state route, and that's the urban paving project. So we would potentially see some awards for that in spring of 2020. And then one of the other major projects that we have, Mr. Zimmerman talked about Regent Avenue and adding some catch basins and trying to get some of that surface stormwater into the system a little sooner before it hits the Williams Avenue area where it pulls up and it doesn't have the capacity. So we have had some flooding there. So he talked about that. But one of our other major storm sewer projects is the Elm Avenue Sewer. And we're applying for grants and trying to get that moving in the right direction. That's another area where, you know, years ago, there was a creek that ran through this whole, you know, the whole city, and we redeveloped all around the creek, and then that creek didn't look good, so we put some pipes in and said, that's good, let's move on, and now we've got events, it seems like stormwater events where it's just a deluge of water instead of just a rain that we used to have. So that is a major project that we're working on, and we hope that in 2023 we'll be working on fixing that stormwater problem that's been here for 50 years. I mean, it's realistically, that flooding has occurred for it's generations.
Is that one really bad area where it gets a couple feet of water and all the houses flood and it happens over and over and people say, why don't you do something? Or is that the Regency?
No, that's Elm. Elm is an area where it's a huge retention pond that grows when there's a large storm, and it floods cars and it floods homes, and it's absolutely been a continuous problem for that area. I can't make excuses, but it's not like the city of Norwood has had a ton of money in the last 20 years. Maybe when General Motors was here, we were flush and we could have did something at that time, but in hindsight, you look at it and say, why didn't they fix this years and years and years ago? Or why did they even let them build houses, the builders, the developers build them at that time? But now we've got to look at the future, and we're trying to, and we'll move forward with that. So that's really the street stuff. Projects, we're still in the mayor's report, right? I'll try to wrap it up quickly. I know you guys don't want to be here all day. We've got a lot of projects going on. I look at the list of, this is the email that you received, and the list of projects, and this lists out, what's in the 21 FRP, and then what PO, what the date was on it, the PO amount, and then year-to-date paid. And as I look through this with the project manager, he's like, man, we've gotten a ton done, and we have. And you can look through the community and see that there's been a ton of progress in the parks. We've done, but I also look at this and say, there's so much more. I could probably have 3 of him working as hard as he has to get this done, and we still wouldn't. We took a huge bite of the pie, and we're really having trouble digesting it with the figures and the numbers, and we were very ambitious on projects. If we've got money, let's get these projects done. We have been able to accomplish a lot, but there's still a lot more to go, and these are going to carry over like we discussed. So, but just the other, another ambitious project that came on is, and we didn't realize was going to happen, is the YMCA building came up for sale, and the city could buy it for $1, and it's really going to be a huge, nice amenity for the city of Norwood, and we've needed something like this for years. But it was a big challenge. It is a big challenge, and we talked a little bit about getting staffing in place. We are getting staffing in place. We thought we'd be further ahead and have more staff going, but if you look at the Recreation's Facebook page, there's all sorts of good stuff that's starting. I mean, youth basketball is starting back up. There's all sorts of good stuff. The police academy, we're working on that. There was a big push. If you think about it, there were some riots a couple years ago. There's been a lot of different challenges with the way police departments work and with the way they're trained and making sure that they have the support. The police departments have the support to do the job properly and the tools and the training to do it well. So we're working on getting the police academy open back up. That's been mothballed for years because of state funding, because different things that went on. But we're gonna work on wellness, and we're gonna work on de-escalation. We're going to work on all the techniques that need to be worked on to have a first-class police department, and we're going to offer those courses and those classes to other communities that are smaller. Norwood's medium-sized, but there are a lot of smaller communities that really need this type of stuff too. So we'll get that academy open back up. So there's been so much progress made in the city, and with the funds that have been allocated by all of you and by council members to get things done, and we're moving forward pretty quickly. There's still a lot of challenges, recognizably. So that's really it. If you have questions or something you guys want to talk about, I'm here. But
Thanks for sharing all that. Good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think personally you've done a very good job as mayor.
thank you. Appreciate you saying that.
Considering where we came from, and I mean, I've seen a ton of stuff just visually, and I hear it, and I just see your approach, and I commend you on your efforts.
Thank you.
Any other questions? 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 Any ot
Thank you. Yep, that's it.
No report of city council. I projected perhaps January 26th as the next meeting date and time.
You know what day that is?
It's a Wednesday.
Got a time in mind?
9.
9 works well for if we can do it.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm not gonna make you get up an hour earlier if that's what but, you know.
Oh, no, that's okay, as long as,
Use your
yeah, I know,
GPS.
yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, we can do 9.
Or we can wait
We
to
can
figure
do
the time out.
We can do 9. No, I'd rather have us have a plan. So let's plan on 9.
26 and 9.
I
Okay.
made it, barely, but I did.
2, 9. Yeah, if that becomes a problem, I mean,
No,
10's okay, it just personally,
9 o'clock works better. Yeah, that's fine, we can do 9. And the reason, we're looking at later in January, obviously to give more time for the reconciliation, and hopefully, close out of year end. So we hope to have a lot more documentation. So if we wait later on in the month, I think that would be better for us and for the city and for the financial
I think that helps
supervisors.
the private accounting people as well.
Okay,
Get the year end closed and
Very
physical
true.
inventories and all that. So the further away you get from early January, the better.
okay, good enough. Now, if you find that there is a need for a meeting between now and then on one specific topic, we can call an emergency or a special meeting. So if we're looking at approval of debt, but I would say that if we're going to do that, that debt has to be reviewed by the financial supervisors first. So that we have the green light from them, we come in and we do our responsibilities, which would be approved debt, and that's it.
And we have to do those in person if that were to happen.
We do now, yes.
Okay.
But if you know of any legislators that would like to change the law on that,
Well, I know other boards I'm on, you know, we can vote by email, we can kind of push things through that need to be pushed through, but
yeah, not us.
Yeah.
I had one of my employees go out to Bridgeport, and wouldn't you know, I mean, a lot of these places like this, I'm mostly going down 71. Well, that's fine because it's 71. But when you're going to Bridgeport, it's basically 23, and if you've got an accident, forget it. Well, of course, I mean, you can't plan for stuff like that. So, but bearing in mind, weather and all things considered, and I can leave early.
We have some very nice hotels around Norwood.
There you
We'd
go.
like to see
There you
our
go.
hotel
The
tax.
the taxes a little low right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my employers would
Frown on that.
probably frown on that.
Well, if
You
that's
are
a problem,
correct.
by all means, we can move the time if it.
No, that's fine. I'm
I
just joking. It's fine. Okay, now that we've set the next meeting, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Mr. Schwartz moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Longenecker seconds. On a voice vote, all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. I thank you.